Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei Extras. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that has also been long discussed, but a different topic. The previous one was representation. This one is, can any duo be balanced in a Minecraft event? And the simple answer is yes, okay? The simple answer is yes, but we're gonna dive deep into the topic, okay? I'm not making a 10-second long video where I just say yes as an answer, okay? By the way, the topic of discussion today has originated from the MCC public Discord. Here's an example message. Any duo is bounceable with the right competition. Very right, correct. Let's get into it. Because people fail to understand the difficulty of some duos taking place in an event and some consequences that could come with allowing a duo to exist. Because there's two options that you have with balancing, whether it's a really strong one or a really weak one duo, which causes some complications. Anyways, let's get into some examples and what we can talk about today. First off, we've seen examples of really strong duos in the past in events. For example, here's one. I've blocked off the people that I think are being no longer talked about. You can see the initials if you want to know who it is. But MCC 30 is a prime example of a time that we've seen incredibly strong duos take place and still be balanced. Sapnap Hannah, insane MCC duo. Ant Frost Purpled, insane MCC duo. Jojo Pete, another insane MCC duo. Like, there was multiple in MCC 30 where the audience's heads were blown off by just the fact that they were so strong. Like, it was hard to comprehend, okay? It was hard to wrap your head around how strong of a team you would see. And in some cases, the OP duo wasn't even that OP, clearly. I mean, the green team on here, with Jojo and Pete as a duo, ended up placing, I think, 5th. I don't have the wiki page open because it has the names of people that shall not be mentioned. So, that's why. But I'm pretty sure they got 5th. So, prime example of how, you know, even if you have a really strong duo, sometimes that doesn't even mean that they're guaranteed going to win. As long as the environment in which the duo takes place is balanced accordingly. But also, let me make it very clear that most events, aside from maybe PB, do not want to have rosters like this one, where it's just agreed upon that it's insanely strong. Because as much as it could be really fun for, like, the audience, you know, the competitive viewers, and even some of the competitive players, the non-competitive players have a really tough time in these events, potentially. This is a highly increased risk of them playing and not enjoying it. And something I've made clear over a lot, like many times now, is that lower placing players, you know, more for fun players, should be valued pretty heavily in events, because without them, you can't make a balanced event. Yes, there is an instance like a Pandora's Box where if they really want to push for a competitive event, they could just have 8 teams with 4 really good players on it. And if that works, that is fantastic. But the typical event format needs lower placing players, thus they need to be valued properly. Thus, most events avoid rosters like MCC 30, and I assume Scott is in the same boat. He probably wouldn't want to run back MCC 30, at least not frequently. Maybe once every now and then to give the competitive viewers what they want and the competitive players what they want. Allow like an Ant Frost and Purple duo to happen again. Allow maybe a Shane and Jojo duo. I know that they've wanted to do it at some point, or I know Shane's mentioned it at least. Allow that to happen for once, but at a very infrequent rate, okay? That is one thing that I need to make sure that everyone understands, because from an event host perspective, strong rosters, unless you're going for a strong or like a competitive event, strong rosters are not ideal. You want to avoid it for the most part. Anyways, so yeah, today, fun little topic to talk about with any duo can be balanced. As much as we have said that it is possible, let's talk about the way that you would handle it. Here is the MCC roster, or at least part of it. This is like the recurring MCC roster. Yes, it has like Ludwig on it, and yes, I know he's not a recurring player. It's vague, okay? It's vague. Anyways, Purpled and Fire Breath Man, or Fire Breath Man and Purpled, whichever duo you want to put, or whichever order you want to put them in, they're the top 2 players in MCC, and there's not really a debate to that. I think statistically they are like 200 average points ahead of third. I don't actually know for sure. I know Shane said that, and I would believe him because he pays attention to that, and I don't. So, yeah, Purpled Fire Breath Man is probably the strongest duo that you could have in MCC. However, the complication with a duo like this is if you wanted to run it, what would you need to sacrifice, essentially, to make it actually happen? In my mind, a duo like this, or kind of regardless of their teammates, will be very dominant in most games. They will probably place top 5 in a significant portion of the games, and having 2 consistent top 5 players to weigh that out to make a balanced team, you need 2 consistent bottom 10 players. Keep in mind, half of MCC is team-based. If you do well as a team, chances are that your lower placing players will score higher, or if you do mid, obviously your top players will score lower, but like let's focus more on the lower placing players. They will do a lot better. So you need to make sure that the 2 people you put with Purple and Fire Breath Men will be properly bad enough at the game to balance out a insane duo like that. Will I give an example? No, because obviously I'm not going to be like, this person, they're bad enough to be with the really good players, they're really, really bad. I'm not going to do that, obviously. But I hope that makes a bit more sense. I'm trying to collect my train of thought while I'm talking about this. Also, one thing that I know has been a case in the past is that some weaker players or lower placing players are very much aware, obviously, that they serve the role as a weaker player, a balancing player, etc., etc. Some of them don't really enjoy being kind of forced into that role. I know this has happened in the past. I've heard it from people and from people talking with other people, etc. That some lower placing players don't really enjoy being put in the role of the balancing factor, essentially, right? If you're a weaker player, especially if you're a weaker Minecraft player, like you're just a Minecraft recurring player, and you are put with Purple and Fire Breath Man, you are probably very much aware of how good of a duo that is, and what your role is on the team. Is to do bad enough to make sure that they don't sweep, which is tough. It's tricky, okay? It's very difficult. Either way, I hope that puts into perspective how that could be a little bit tricky. One way that I think MCC would be able to do it technically, this is not how I would not suggest them to do this anyways, because it's complicated and stupid, but technically how they could do it is if they added 2 newcomers who are not Minecraft players, who are really bad, and then put them with Purple and Fire Breath Man. If for whatever reason there's a duo of bad Minecraft players that really wants to play MCC, and that would make a lot of sense and would be hype. Can I think of an example? Not really. Let's say Anthony Padilla and Ian Hecox from Smosh. Let's say Smosh wants to play. Yeah, then you'd put them with Purple and Fire Breath Man. Yeah, that would make sense. I would fully agree in that regard, but that is a very, very specific scenario that I don't think we're going to see ever. Or at least not much. Maybe once ever total. So yeah, complications with a really, really strong duo. Really weak duo is included here as well, okay? If you have a duo that is either really, really good or really, really weak, there's 2 options. You either make a team that has 2 extremes, or 4 extremes on it, I guess, 2 really good players and 2 really bad players, or you make 2 really good players with bad players but not extremely bad players, or 2 really bad players with good players but not extremely good players, and then make every other team roughly balanced around that, essentially sacrificing an entire cycle, an entire roster, just to make sure that one team is fair. Do I recommend any event to do that? No, we tried that for Block Wars 9, and it was fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I know the majority of the people enjoyed it, but that roster is also... I did tell the players that we were aiming for a weaker roster, for a more for fun approach, which turned out great. But if you don't announce that in advance, showing up with a really weak roster for a competitive, in quotations, event might be a little bit odd. vice versa too. If you don't let people know, oh, this event's going to be insanely sweaty, by the way, and they show up, they sign up and they see like, oh my god, purple fire breathman duo and like 4 other like same duos, what? They might not want to play anymore. So definitely something to take care of and be careful of. I know I've mostly talked about MCC. The reason, by the way, is because the question came from the MCC Discord. Let's talk about Block Wars. What if you wanted to do a Feinberg and Purpled, who are the 2 statistical highest players in Block Wars, duo? Well, here's a screenshot from the balancing sheet that I use. This is the extra slot. And the new is just a placeholder player. I don't have like specific players in mind that you'd put here. You'd need to make balanced average placement and balanced ranking factor. Ranking factor is essentially a tier list where we say like, oh, a 1 is like S tier, essentially, kind of, and an 8 is like F tier, kind of. That's the right number, the 4.6 and the 109. 109 being average placement, which is the second factor, or the second digit. So for Feinberg, it's 1.2 average, which is ridiculous. Purple is 2.9, and then the newcomer slot is just like a rough average. You need a 5, which is like a low, like a just shy of top half, like top end bottom half player, and then 2 8s. An 8 is like bottom 5, guaranteed, pretty much, right? That is just to make balanced placement and rank factor. If you were to make balanced scoring according to the goal of like or like the aimed goal for a future Block Wars main rosters, you would need not just 2 bottom 5 players, but like another bottom 10. And that's a little ridiculous. Like, as much as it could be fun, and if there is a trio of really bad players who would love to play together in a main Block Wars event, yeah, sure, we could be like, oh, let's do Fine and Purpled, or Shane and Purpled, or whatever duo would make sense, right? Let's run it now because we have this opportunity. Sure, we might do it. But to specifically give 3 players, like, this really strong duo, and make pretty much be like, hey, please be bad at the game. Like, we need you to be bad at the game, please. It's not ideal. Also want to clarify, the reason I have the Block Wars tabs open is because people might see 3.5k average and be confused, because if you look on the Block Wars website, Feinberg is at 3.2. That's because the stats from before Block Wars 8, I think, or 7. I don't remember when I did the scoring change. I think it was 8. They're not updated, because we decided to bump pretty much every score by, like, I think it was 25 or 20%, or like the majority of scoring was bumped by 20 to 25%, because there were some balancing issues and we needed the range of scores to be higher. I adjusted it in my sheet. I literally made an entire manual sheet for this, but the website's not updated because the website uses true statistics from the event itself, which is also why you'll find my, what's it called? My stats on this website look really bad. It's like an 11 average because it includes my pride placement of 1 order up game where the team got last, because I like emergency subbed in. Anyways, yeah, and then Purple is another case. I mean, he's 3.2k on my sheets, but 2.8k on here. If I balanced Purple as 2.8k, he would win. So same with Fine. If I balanced Fine at 2.3k, he would also win. So that's why they're adjusted. Anyways, I hope this gives a bit more insight on balancing and stuff. And you know, it's just a fun topic to discuss. I used the example of 2 really good players because, fun fact, calling people really good at the game is a bit nicer than calling them really bad at the game. So I could give you an example of 2 really bad players, potentially, but I hope you understand that I'm just going to avoid that for today. Yeah, I hope they give some insights on, can any duo be balanced? It sure can. It's possible. Technically possible. Is it realistic? Usually, depending on the duos, and when you're talking about every duo is possible, usually it's the really strong duos that people request. Usually it's not realistic, but maybe it's possible. It's maybe. Do I think it's gonna happen in MCC season 4? I don't think so. I'm predicting that hopefully at least the average skill level will be lowered a little bit, especially now that obviously some players are going to disappear from the roster, probably permanently, or at least for a while. Hopefully that those slots won't be filled up with really good players immediately. Maybe, I mean, I'd still love to see one really good player. I've talked about it plenty of times. A Radoons, a Kuriway, etc. would be great. But hopefully the majority of those slots will go to middle of the pack level players or lower placing players, and we'll see just a more like low comp MCC. And if not, good for the fans, I guess. I mean, hey, the MCC Reddit loves seeing competitive stuff. So, anyways, thank you for watching. Hope y'all understand the topic, and that's it. Goodbye.